Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Okay, so I am Joe Grumbine, and I am here on the Healthy Living podcast, sponsored by Willow Creek Springs. And I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Clarissa, and I've known Clarissa now for, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I would say, maybe even going on 6. It's been so long.
Yeah.
It's getting longer.
It's wild how time goes by sometimes. And, Clarissa, you're so young, and yet you have such a wealth of experience involving the healthy living community. And I consider the healthy living community kind of, we just got started yapping, and you touched on something like you said, our way of living, our way of doing things. And I consider that to be not the pharma way, not the mainstream media way, not ask your doctor for the latest pill way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Western medicine on sometimes in some places, but if you've ever been to the doctor or the hospital, first thing they want to do is get you signed up for every shot and every, strap up and get the test and go get in the system here. I'm like, whoa, hold on now. I just stubbed my toe. I want to make sure I've got a little something for that.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and where you came from and kind of what brings you to this conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for having me. My name is Clarissa, and I was raised in a healthy living community. So I think that's a good place to start. I was raised in Northern California in a small little country town. And, I think being surrounded by a community who was involved and advocated for alternative or integrative medicine really kind of inspired me from a young age to be open to all the possibilities of natural healing and remedies. And so, I think that's that being young and my mom not only giving me Tylenol for my sickness, but also giving me echinacea drops and giving me eucalyptus to help open my airways. I think, being coming from such a young age and having those remedies around me really began my journey, even without me realizing it. Now that I'm older, I get to reflect.
You said 2 words here, and I think one of the things that I want this to be is educational, but a lot of times people use terms that to them are just so commonplace, but not everybody knows. Like, some people think that holistic is the same as homeopathic. Or you hear similar words and you're like, oh yeah, that's that natural thing. But you said alternative and integrated, and the two are very different and yet are very important. So alternative medicine, we would consider something that was maybe different from what the mainstream allopathic medicinal solutions would be, like you said, Tylenol, or a mainstream Western medicine approach, where integrated would be in addition to or along with. And so the two are not necessarily enemies. People think you're either this or that, but the truth is, in my opinion, healthy living is whatever's the best thing for you. And the thing that brings you the most health and the least amount of harm. And I like the fact that you just wove those 2 words into the conversation like that.
It's part of my subconscious, and then especially kind of what we were talking about before the episode started rolling was just that it's becoming more and more accepted. And more people are realizing that you can have both. You don't have to have one or the other. You can have Western medicine and other forms of medicines. And I think it's important and it's exciting that in this day and age, people are open to all the possibilities that are really ancient, right? This is ancient medicine. This has been around before Western medicine. These medicines that we use and that we talk about are the first medicines that humans have ever used. So I'm really excited to kind of see it come full circle in 2022. It's been a hot topic, and I'm hoping that in 2023 we can continue to share the knowledge and share the wealth. And I think that this podcast is amazing and super important because you get the opportunity to talk about something so important. And I consider you, a pioneer in I don't know what the integrative medicine, alternative medicine.
Both, yeah. I mean, what I do is involving all of those things as well. I work with, and we're not here to talk about me, but I mean, I work with herbs that people used 10,000 years ago, and I work with ultrasonic techniques that have recently been discovered, and so it's integrated in the sense of, I believe that we're learning all the time about better ways to do things as we're exploring nanoparticles and all kinds of different ways of bringing these ancient herbs more easily into our system. But the whole notion, you made another good point. All of history up until about 100 years was medicine, and then the last 100 years has been Western new modern medicine. So and with COVID, I don't know, the term science was thrown around like people who knew what they were talking about, and it's like, well, science just means what we understand today. And if you look at science throughout the history, there was a point of science where the sun revolved around the earth, and until we figured out it didn't. And there was times when people would get their blood taken out of them to get rid of a disease, until people figured out that wasn't what did it. And all that was science. It's been science all along. So I can't help but think what next year and the year after, and 20, 50, 100, 1,000 years is going to bring our understanding of science.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and it's exciting, and I think it's wonderful that you provide these remedies for people, and it's amazing. So I'm so grateful to be part of your clan and part of your healthy living family.
That's the way I see it too. We're just a big family.
Yeah, we are a big family, and I'm hoping more people join and come in. And if you're curious or you're interested or a lot, you either can learn or share or do both. I'm really excited for this platform to be available to everyone. So, but yeah, I'll kind of go back to kind of where I came from. So I came from that kind of environment, that community. My journey with healthiness and healthy living, I kind of began when I was a teenager. So when I was 15, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disease, and it affects the intestines. And it was really bad. My disease was really it allowed, kind of made me dysfunctional. So I couldn't be a normal teenager. I couldn't do anything, normal activities. I was just sick in bed, in and out of the hospitals. And I couldn't function. My body was not functioning properly. And then I eventually got diagnosed with 2 other diseases. So I have Crohn's disease, Lyme disease, and inflammatory response syndrome. And all of these are really just essentially my immune system and my body inflamed and not really knowing what's happening. And my body is
attacking itself. Yeah,
it was attacking itself and didn't really know what was happening. And so my experience with the Western world was quite a challenge, because I went to, I think it was 11 doctors before I got diagnosed. And so, hearing different diagnoses from different doctors and anything from, oh, it's just a stomach ache or a headache in your stomach, to let's cut out some of your intestines, to now where I am now. So I've had a lot of experience with the Western world, and my experience was not very great. Like I said, they recommended giving me a surgery that would have cut out 11 inches of my intestines and would have had me eating from a bag, and completely not able to function. And I'm so glad.
A guy that had what you have, and he had that done. And when I met him, he had an ileostomy bag, and it was terrible. It was the most horrible experience, that I ever watched somebody go through. It was terrible.
Yeah, I can't imagine. No, exactly. And that's something that's really hard to hear because that was their solution. And of course, I'm not bagging on all Western medicine, all doctors, because I think some
Oh,
doctors are amazing and there's amazing things that come out of it. But that was their solution to the problem. Instead of going deep and saying, well, what other things can we find that could help remedy your symptoms and your pain and the ulcers that are in your intestines? They didn't recommend diet change. They didn't recommend anything natural. It was just continue eating McDonald's, and then we'll just cut out your intestines, and everything should be good.
what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? And so, and the pain that I suffered from that, I was on all the medications you can imagine. As a 15, 16, 17-year-old, I was on Vicodin, Percocet, Dilaudid, amitriptyline, Toradol, Tramadol. I mean, the list goes on. I have so many prescriptions for pain, and that
didn't even work.
It didn't work. It just masked the pain.
Right.
And I was a teenager
Got you addicted.
on these pain medications. And so
Right.
it was quite a journey. And that really allowed me to dabble, or step back into where I come from, my roots in therapeutic or alternative medicine. And I began my journey with cannabis. And as a 15, 16-year-old girl, my mother had actually heard that cannabis was good for Crohn's disease. And now this was, I'm 28 now, so this was quite some time ago. So
Way back in the old days.
way back in the day.
Back in the 2010s.
Yeah, in the 2010s. My mom had heard that cannabis was good for Crohn's disease. And I grew up in Northern California in the Emerald Triangle, where cannabis was not taboo. So it wasn't like a big deal. But she didn't also really think to give her 15-year-old daughter cannabis. So although it wasn't taboo, it wasn't the thing that she thought to do. And but because we had it, super accessible to us. And she was like, well, nothing else is working for her. They're going to give her surgery. Let's try something else. I tried cannabis. I got.
And also, wait, let me catch this, because the one thing that's, in my opinion, the most important overlooked factor in especially cannabis use. We talk about alternative and herbs and all of this.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of herbs that have toxic levels, and you shouldn't just blindly go take herbs. But cannabis is that one plant that doesn't have a toxic dose. And so from your mom's point of view, in the worst case scenario, like every single one of those prescription meds you had, if you took too much of it, you would die. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them, with no exceptions. They all had a one where if you accidentally ate the whole bottle, you probably wouldn't wake up. Cannabis, you could eat the whole bottle. You could eat the whole plant. You could eat the whole bushel. And you might get a stomach ache and you might feel bloated, but you wouldn't die. And so, good job, Mom, because you thought about a solution that maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't, but you knew for sure it wasn't going to cause you death.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks, Joe, for pointing that out, because I think that's super important. People are not aware that, or they might have this perception that all herbs are safe, but there are toxic levels, like you're saying. But cannabis is this golden plant that it's an exception to this rule. And yeah, I mean, it changed my life. I began that journey. I got on all the fresh flower that we had available to us. I mean, we went to the gardens and I just ate it raw. Mm-hmm. And before we had, the science was there, but it wasn't well known like today. We didn't have Instagram and Facebook and all these podcasts talking about cannabis and its therapeutic effects and all of the cannabinoids and terpene profiles. We didn't have that. It was just kind of he said, she said, and then we know that cannabis is an ancient herb that helps people.
Right.
So
the Stone Age people were walking around with it in their bags for some reason.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, just getting on that journey and doing different remedies with it, just eating it, juicing it, and using it in tincture form, smoking it topically, all of that. my life changed. Instead of getting 11 inches of my intestines cut out and was on these medications, I went back to the doctor and got a procedure done that, looks, it's endoscopy and colonoscopy, looks inside your body, in your intestines, and it was all gone. So all the lesions.
Hold on. I got a little something for that. That's the good news, Bill. I bring that out every time I hear good news.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it was gone, and that was a shocker for all the doctors there, and a shocker for everyone involved, me included. I mean, I was super grateful and happy that I felt nothing was helping me, nothing, and that helped me, and I was able to eat again. I was not malnourished. I was malnourished because your body, when you have intestinal
disease, absorbing anything, yeah.
Absorb anything. So I was malnourished. I was sick. I was bedridden. My intestines didn't even work. I couldn't process like a normal person. And I felt better. I was healthy. I was strong. I was eating. I was just a whole different person. And it was all thanks to that beautiful plant. But at the time, the stigma was still really big, and it was not accepted. And I was in children's hospital, and they looked at us like, "What do you mean cannabis? What are you talking about?" They were not happy. Yeah, they were not excited or happy about it. But all we could say is, this is the proof. You have images from before and after. This is what we did, and she doesn't need to do all the things that you had recommended that were detrimental to her health, her long-term health. So here I am, healthy living, and that really prompted my journey to become, or be healthier in my living.
That's fantastic. So how long has it been since you've had, that last episode, or I mean, is it completely, did it, like some conditions or diseases have a place where they go away and they're gone, like a virus will ultimately work itself out of you, or a bacterial infection will go away and be gone. Other things will linger, and there's certain viruses that'll stay stuck in your body and will never go away, or as far as we know, or things like cancers where they go away and then they're looking for a reason to come back. And I don't know that much about the long-term I don't know, consequences of Crohn's. Is it a disease that goes away, like can be gone and never come back?
Well, as of now, in the Western medicine, it's not curable, so it doesn't go away. It just becomes dormant and like goes into remission. So technically, I'm in remission with all of my diseases, but not because of steroids or monthly shots or infusions like most people are in remission from.
It's kind of like an allergy, where if you avoid certain things, and it doesn't aggravate it. So I know, and again, I thank God I don't have that. I could eat anything, and all I do is get fat. But the deal of Crohn's, where it's kind of the opposite. You can't eat anything, and your body won't absorb anything. Like allergies, I deal with allergies. I'm allergic to a fungus that's common in certain places, and it gives me pneumonia every time I breathe it in. And I created a tonic for that, which keeps it in check. But if I get exposed to it, it still wants to react and cause it. Or people that are, that have celiac and they're allergic to gluten, or they have peanut allergies or whatever, they're fine as long as they don't come in contact with certain things. But then if they do, it can flare up and be this big problem. Is that kind of how it is with you?
Yeah, it is. So Crohn's, like a lot of part of, big part of it is diet. So I really have to be conscious of my diet, which is hard sometimes because I want to indulge in delicious.
Yeah, for some reason, delicious and bad for you go in the same bucket almost every time. Like, I don't know what it is. Yeah, especially holiday time, man. All that good, juicy, delicious stuff. It's like all full of stuff that isn't your friend.
It isn't your friend, exactly. Yeah, so it's hard, but for the most part, I maintain a really healthy diet, and stress and all the other things that trigger inflammation in the body, I just try to stay away from. And and really just maintain a healthy lifestyle. So emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy. My habits, my eating habits, really contribute to the status of the disease. And cannabis.
All right. One of the things that we're going to be talking about in future episodes are, specific elements of healthy living, and you just brought forth a whole bunch of them. And I'm going to be talking about stress and healthy living. I'm going to be talking about diet and healthy living. We're going to be talking about sleep and healthy living and all of these things. And, I certainly want to have a number of my guests come back to speak specifically on some of these topics. This is sort of a meet and greet and getting to know you and whatnot. So I'm glad that you're on your own touching on all these things, because, inflammation is part of most people's any disease or ailment that they have. Like, people are starting to become more and more aware of inflammation as a scourge. I mean, there's a guy named Dr. Gundry who I became very changed by his writings and teachings about diet and inflammation, and how inflammation is behind most problems, from migraines to Crohn's to arthritis, cancers. I mean, everything somewhere behind it has inflammation involved.
I would love to learn more about that doctor, but it's such a big factor and contributes. It's the main source to so many of our problems, and it's not addressed. It's not, right. It's the source to everything, but it's not addressed. And so it's a really interesting thing.
Exactly. And the Western medicine solution to anti-inflammation are things like Tylenol, and even Tylenol has a toxic dose. So these anti-inflammatories, even aspirin, I mean, even if it's naturally sourced, it's got a toxic dose. And so it's interesting, because there's a couple of combinations of things that I think with regarding to inflammation are so important. One is removing certain things, and your body's immune response uses inflammation to protect you. So when your body has a problem and is being attacked, your body rushes fluid to the area to protect the area that's being attacked, because that's what we have. So if you hurt yourself and hit your arm, your body swells up to protect the part that got hit from getting hurt again more. And so it's our own natural response to keep us from being severely injured. And yet it doesn't always have an off switch. And so, a little turns into a lot. And then inflammation in a limited way has a value, but when it becomes prolonged, that's when it turns into these diseases, I think. And I think that's behind a lot of the problems we're going to find in a lot of conversations here on this podcast. Is going to be, you're going to find inflammation is going to keep creeping in wherever we go. But you're aware of it now. So you mentioned stress. You think stress has an influence on inflammation?
Yeah, definitely. So, even before reading the articles or learning more about things that trigger Crohn's, I made that correlation myself. I'm stressed, high stress levels, things are going on, stomach ache. Oh my goodness, my symptoms are flaring up. I'm in pain, I'm lethargic, I'm fatigued, all the things started happening. And then the science comes out, right? So I think that happens a lot too. Our bodies know something, we react to something, we follow remedies from our grandmothers or traditions, and then science comes out. It's like, oh yeah, that was right the whole time.
Right, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I think, in the old days, it was a lot of experience and experimenting and paying attention to things. What caused people to eat this, that, or the other thing, and notice that it did this, that, or the other thing. Who knows? Probably a lot of generations of people that noticed this one thing and then told this one person. But meanwhile, it had to do with noticing, I think, more than anything, right? If you animals, for whatever reason, they pick this stuff up quick. Like
Yeah.
an animal won't eat a poisonous plant because it knows better,
Yeah.
and we'll eat all kinds of poisonous things, and we don't notice until it's way too late. So
Yes.
I think the fact that you are noticing things, and enough people do notice things, and I think that that's a big part of this journey. I've spoken with this. We had an osteopath on a few days ago, and one of the things she talked about was paying attention to our own bodies and listening to ourselves. And I think that in my own journey, that was maybe the biggest thing that happened was in my transformation of losing weight and changing the way I eat. All of a sudden I came to a place where I could tell if I'm on or not. If like I wake up, I know how I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
I have these rhythms that I know, and if I'm out of whack, I know it now. And I think we a lot of people walk through their lives in a haze, and they don't even notice from one thing to the next. Do you find that you've come to know your own body, like how you are most of the time, and then you notice right away if you're off kilter a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And that's also come with age and getting
Right.
older, and not being in my teens and ignoring things, or in my younger 20s and just riding through it. Oh, I feel horrible, and kind of just drinking a coffee or something to like
Right.
feel energized. But yeah, I think and that's part of healthy living too, is really, like that doctor mentioned, is listening to your body and being aware, and tuning into how you're reacting to certain things. So if it's like reaction to lack of sleep, if I didn't get enough sleep, I know how many hours I need to be at optimum level, or different foods that trigger my Crohn's disease. So I think, especially in the more recent years, I've definitely come to a rhythm of understanding my body and what it likes and what it doesn't like, and when I'm doing good and when I'm not. And I think it's important to it's all the factors contribute to it, like we were talking about earlier. Everything: sleep, stress, habits, diet, everything. So I'm really grateful and excited that I've come to this realization and have been more aware, because there's some people that don't, even at any age,
Right.
and they never become aware, or they make the correlation but they don't stop.
Right.
um,
It,
so
I
yeah.
find it interesting. Some people, they know better, they do the wrong thing, they suffer, and they whine and bitch. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Mhm. Mhm.
You just did the thing that is going to make you feel lousy, and you're complaining about feeling lousy, but you just did the thing that is going to cause that. What the hell?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely guilty of that too. When there's one thing that triggers my symptoms is bread, and bread is my favorite thing in the world. I
I'm
love
guilty of that too.
I like, some people like bread is okay. I'm like, no, bread is everything. I can live
Yeah.
off of it. That's one thing that triggers me. And sometimes I'll put like a fresh loaf on my grocery cart, and I'll be like my best friend or my mom, and they'll look at me like, really? And they'll
What do
take
you
it out.
do?
You
Yeah.
know better.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I could give up anything, but the bread, like I don't eat bread most of the time, but then we come down to, whatever, go out to dinner, or a nice big family meal, and get some hot sourdough, fresh rolls, whatever. I mean, oh my God, just nothing like it. Nothing
Yeah.
like
Yeah, no, but I think it's been great. The journey of coming to a healthier lifestyle has been hard and trivial, but oh, I had to go through kind of a trial and error to figure out what's good, and when I'm good, and when I'm functioning properly. And a big something that contributes to that is back to cannabis. But cannabis really has changed my life, and really helps regulate and my body and my system, which it does.
So let's talk about cannabis as sort of a topic. So what this is probably going to get broke up into 2 episodes. So we're just basically finishing up the Meet Clarissa episode, and now we can open up into a new episode. And like I said, we'll cut it up, and anything that's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to be cut off, we don't have to worry about any of that. But you were I don't know, I'd say blessed enough to be raised in a place where cannabis is everywhere, and it wasn't like, I grew up in Southern California where there was plenty of it here, but it was all super underground, and I knew from when I was very young that I liked it, but I also knew that I had to be very careful all the time, no matter what, because I was doing this back in the 70s and the 80s, and it was a whole nother world. And so you're up in the Emerald Triangle, in the 2000s, and that's a whole, that's a whole different experience. And so the fact that people are open, not just open to it, but it just the fact that it wasn't it wasn't like I couldn't share my cannabis experience with anybody without knowing that they were okay. And it was old school gangster, you have to come in through somebody, or I'm not even going to talk to you about anything, I don't even know you, where meanwhile up there people are, they got a big old farm just growing out in the sun, and everybody's got the big old grower fatty, and it's no big deal.
Yeah. It was quite a time, and seeing the journey firsthand, especially where we are now in the adult use era in California and in so many different states, and now different states legalizing it medicinally. I mean, it's and then now corporations, which could be a whole nother episode. But it's becoming so mainstream and so accepted from where it was, and definitely growing up in the Emerald Triangle, it was like you said, it just accepted and wasn't taboo, and most, I think it was 7 out of 10 houses grew. So it's only 3 of my neighbors were not growers.
Right.
No.
They probably didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and everyone was, so that was a really interesting time, and a time I was young, so I wasn't aware of the totality of cannabis in the world and how it was viewed. But that definitely contributed to how I began my health journey, because if it wasn't so accepted, how easily was it going to be accessible to me? If I was raised down here or somewhere else, and my mom's like, oh, I think cannabis was good for Crohn's, it may not have gone that route, because maybe it wouldn't have been so easy, or they would have looked at us like we're crazy, or maybe more people would have talked her out of it. So I'm really grateful that I was brought up in an area, an environment where it contributed to my health journey.
Well, you were talking about consuming cannabis raw, and that was something that even today, not a lot of people really talk about. I know at one point, I believe it was Dr. Courtney was very involved with the raw cannabis juicing. And, I had a juicer at one point. It's a lot of work to make cannabis juice, and it doesn't last very long. So you have to pretty much drink it quick or freeze it. And that was one thing I learned. I could make ice cubes out of it, and that would lock it in place. But it's a lot of work to juice cannabis. You have to have a certain kind of a screw press. It's like a wheatgrass juicer, and just, oh God, it's a mess. And it's mostly just a lot of work to get a little bit of juice. And yet the idea of that whole plant being squeezed into a juice and all the goodness, I mean, I remember when I was doing, I was just experimenting, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that it wasn't going to hurt me. And, we were sort of paying attention to what Dr. Courtney was doing, and a handful of other, doctors that were embracing the idea of THCA and some of the, keeping the compounds in the plant, not destroying them by burning them. So there's the good and the bad with smoking it, but the bad about smoking it is it destroys a lot of these compounds while they're delivering it to you, where drinking the juice by itself, it's weird because the THCA is generally not very psychoactive, so it doesn't get you, like if you drank a glass of juice that was squeezed out of buds of in some form or another, if you were to smoke that very amount of buds, you wouldn't be toast, like you couldn't possibly, even survive or be conscious, but you can eat way more than you can smoke and it doesn't get you. But one thing I noticed, and again, I don't have an extensive experience, but for a while I was dabbling quite a bit. It was just messy and took a lot of time. And I really liked the way it made me feel. It had you felt it in your brain, you felt it in your body, but it wasn't anywhere near the same as smoking it. Did you have that same experience?
Yeah, it was like an invigorating feeling, and
Yeah.
like a clear feeling, like you kind of get sometimes when you're on a certain strains where you're like invigorated and alert and happy and like awakened, and for lack of better words, and but not altered or not high.
Down for sure, not impaired in any kind of a negative way. And I almost felt like inspired, almost like I could do that, and then I could get off to work and just want to get and do whatever it was I was doing.
Yeah. I mostly, the times that I juiced, I felt that way. But I also, the majority of the time, I would eat the bud fresh, like a salad.
Yeah, I did that sometimes too.
Yeah, and it was yummy and delicious, and that really, I mean, like within the 20 minutes, my pain would be gone.